Good evening, everyone. Welcome to a very special Memorial Presents. This will be my first time interviewing, I guess, or having an open discussion with another guest. I am home in my studio, and we are going to be inviting Ryan, who is the organizer, founder of the Gavel Project. The Gavel Project, if you guys don't have never heard of them, the Gavel Project is a project that was started by a lawyer who is looking to uh, hold people personally accountable for the choices that they make. These people whom hold positions like superintendent, city council. His focus is mainly schools, school board members. These people, we've tried to go for their bonds. Sometimes it's successful, sometimes they withhold it, and people don't know where to go. People don't know where to turn. This gentleman and the Gavel Project were instrumental in getting the Keppel Union School District's superintendent to quit because they're going to hold these parents personally accountable. We hear stories of parents who've lost a child because their child committed suicide during the pandemic. We hear stories about parents who their children are traumatized from the schools and the bullying. And so, if these administrators aren't doing anything, we should be holding them accountable. So, in about 3 minutes, Ryan is going to be joining us from the Gavel Project, and he's going to be telling you guys about his project and what he's doing and how he's working hard to save our children. It's at the heart of everything I've done. I don't want to remind people, and I hate the reminder that I don't have children. I can't make children with the person that I love. I can buy a child, I can adopt a child. If it falls in my lap, God, it would be a blessing. Children are a blessing. So in a few minutes, we're going to be talking to someone who is fighting for your children, fighting for their future, fighting to protect their innocence, fighting to protect their psychological health, because we see what these mandates have done. We see these new legislations coming down where they want to inject your children without your consent, and lowering the age of consent to as early as 12 years old. This is the heart of what he does at the Gavel Project. So in a few minutes, he's going to be joining us. I'm super excited to be introducing the Gavel Project to you guys, because this is important information. And if you guys want to screen record this, please feel free to screen record this. We at the Palmdale Freedom Coalition are fresh off of our victory with the ordinance, but the work doesn't stop. We immediately turned and focused and said, where do we need to go? And everyone said schools, so that's where we're going to go. And so we're going to use the strength of the coalition that we've already found and created, and we're going to grow that, and we're going to help save our schools, because that's exactly what's happening. If you read some of the communist manifestos, one of the things that they do, one of the tactics, is for them to take over your school districts. And we see that. We see our school districts are maybe very blue leaning in a very red community, and these parents need to wake up. They need to be aware of their rights. And so I'm excited to bring Ryan on. Let's see, I've got someone in the thing. This is not Ryan. We'll see if he joins us. So you guys tell me. You guys definitely, if you have any questions that you want to give to him, I have a pen and paper. I can write them down. Definitely you'll be able to shout them out and leave them in the comments, because we want everybody to be informed. This is going to be good information. I'm captain of the information team. I'm an information hawk. I love getting information and sharing information. That's why I created Mario Presents, because I present to you guys. It's not about me. It's about these other people. It's about these other things. So without further ado, let's see if he gets ready to join here. Come on, Mr. Ryan. So, what do you guys hope to hear? What do you guys want to see? What do you guys want to hear us discuss when it comes to these school districts and when it comes to fighting for our children? What do you guys want to hear from him? And it looks like we are getting connected here. There's Ryan. I see him jump in. There they are. Perfect. We're going to be talking, for those of you guys just joining us, definitely accountability. I want to hear what you guys want to see accomplished with regards to these schools. Do you know, this is exactly the focus of the Gavel project, is to hold these people accountable. I still haven't seen the Gavel project's request yet, so as soon as you can send me that request, I will approve that, and we will have a discussion with the Gavel project, and I'll present to you guys the work that they do, the work that they've done, and why they chose California, because California is the heartbeat. Where it goes California, we know goes the rest of the nation. So I have the idea that the assumption that it's probably because it's California is important project. Come on, is it joint? There we are.
Hey guys, how's everybody doing? Thanks for having me,
Good.
Mario. Appreciate being here.
So Ryan, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us about the Gavel project. Tell us about what work you've done, and let us know how we can start. How can we find out more information?
Yeah, so my name is Ryan. I am a lawyer, but more importantly, I'm a father. And so when all of the craziness was happening in California back in October, early October, when I saw Gavin Newsom come out and say that he was going to force vaccinate y'all's children, I quit my job. I just couldn't take it anymore. I have two little girls that I'm actually had the pleasure of spending the last couple of days with. I'm typically in California, but I'm an Arizona guy. And the reason I'm in your state is because it's your ground zero. Everything that's happening relative to child abuse across the nation in the name of the greater good, it's happening in California primarily. And I basically we're a nonprofit law firm. We help kids that are being abused by teachers, by principals, by superintendents, by trustees across the state. And our job is to help those people get justice by bringing personal lawsuits on behalf of those students for the abuse, because the action of removing a mask is actually what's called, it's expressive conduct, it's free speech in the eyes of the Supreme Court. And that's because given our current circumstances, anyone taking a mask off is sending a very clear message. It's a message of protest. And so it allows us to bring litigation under the Civil Rights Act, under Title 42, Section 1983 of the US Code. And so that's really my specialty. And what we're doing is we're suing. I have a couple lawsuits lined up right now, actually. Coronado Island, we're taking on the school district there on behalf of a student. We have students up in Capistrano Unified School District, but we have students as far north as Natomas as well that we've been helping out. And we're trying to basically bring justice on behalf of the students who have been wronged here and help those kids, because a lot of them have been abused. They have harm done to them psychologically, physically. So we're going to try to help them out the best we can.
So what type of punishment are we talking about? I mean, with regards to teachers and children and educators, what kind of punishment are we hearing about?
Yeah. So do you mean punishment like for the kids, or punishment as far as what we're
Yeah,
doing to hold them accountable?
yeah, for the
Oh,
kids.
yeah, it's pretty grotesque. We have kids that have been not only physically assaulted, locked in rooms. We have students that have been locked in plastic, like I mean, literally in closets with plastic sheets hanging around them. These are elementary school kids for 6 to 8 hours a day. It's really, really gross. And teachers telling students that they are vile and disgusting. These are 14-year-old kids being told by adults twice their age, at least quarterly, and their maturity as well. At least that's what we expect as other adults in the room. Telling these kids that they are going to be killing other people because they decide to take their masks off. These are the types of things that we encounter on a daily basis. And my inbox is full of some of the most, really disgusting stories that anyone has have ever heard of, as far as abusing kids in the name of what I'd like to call the COVID regime, or the greater good, as it used to be called. But it is still sort of that idea.
Cool. So now, how would you go? Now, how do you go about verifying this? I mean, I guess you could say evidence. Like, how are we getting this?
Yeah, I've got the photo evidence. I've got the documentation of literally school boards calling children vile and disgusting. Like, I mean, we have videos of this type of stuff. And it really, the craziest thing is sometimes these people are putting it in writing. They're calling children clear and present danger. They're telling these kids they are dangerous to other people by the dint of their mere existence, which is crazy. I mean, for 100 years in this country, we used to be able to go to school without masks on. That was not disruptive. The act of removing a mask is not disruptive. It never has been. But these kids are not clear and present danger. That's what they're trying to suspend these kids for when they remove their masks. They're saying they are somehow dangerous or somehow disruptive to the community. And that's why I'm speaking about these terms disruptive relative to clear and present danger. I know I'm a little bit all over the place with legal jargon. I'm trying to parse it out for folks
No,
too,
it's
but
good. I like it. I mean, it definitely, because I've heard parents come to me and tell me that my child attempted suicide or my child left a
yeah.
suicide note. It breaks my heart that parents have to deal with these, these psychological ramifications that are coming down, I'm assuming from the schools.
The teachers, the principals, the people who write these policies and have the teachers adopt these policies are the ones who are really going to be held personally liable as far as that's our plan. We're bringing personal lawsuits against all of the people for tens of millions of dollars even for these kids who have been harmed because the damage is real and the punitive.
Go ahead. Oh,
Sorry, my phone is like dying.
that's
I'm,
okay.
I'm out of town. I don't have my cord with me right now, but I've got probably 15 more minutes for you. These kids
That's
though
okay.
are being just discriminated against left and right. I mean, I've got kids that have got sunburn from sitting out in the 90-degree heat for all day. These are elementary school kids too. One of my clients has to wear an electric jacket to school just to be able to stay warm because in the morning when she shows up to go to class, they put her out in the cold instead of actually just giving her an education as she's entitled to under the California Constitution. It guarantees it. It's expressly in there, and people seem to forget to read what the law actually says, and they just start saying whatever they want, like Gavin Newsom does. He's a fiat dictator, and he's not a good one. He's
Right.
as someone else called him, I think very cleverly, a duplicitous Ken doll. It's a very good description for him.
Yeah. So if parents, like, let's say if students have taken photos or taken videos, would they want to hold on to that? Would they want to then reach out? What would they do with that?
Yeah, so if you guys want help, please go to my website, thegavelproject.com. We have a contact page for students who have been harmed. We'd love to actually hear your story, see if there's a way we can connect you with an attorney, which is what I do. I help
Good.
connect the best lawyers in the state of California with the best medical experts, with the best fact patterns for litigation to try and really solve these problems on a societal level. We're trying to set precedents that this never happens again. And that's why we've been litigating in the areas that we're actually in right now. But the kids across the state really deserve justice. I mean, the number of students who have been harmed is amazing. I'm talking about group punishment. I think that you mentioned something but before, Mario, as well, where you've heard stories about kids being put through really strange punishment routines to be able to actually to have these kids put the mask back on. I know kids that when they take their masks off in 40-degree weather, the whole class gets sent outside because that's the punishment. It's a group punishment intended to cause the student to get bullied. I mean, have you heard anything about these types of things?
No, I've never heard of that. I recently had a situation where a high school teacher in my community was giving extra credit for students who were willfully wearing a mask.
Yeah,
That's, giving extra credit for mask. A couple parents sent a letter to an email to the administrator, and they said, okay, you can't do that. And now this educator is handing out candy to those students. And so, sorry. Um,
good.
no,
Hey,
excuse me.
puppy.
Sorry. I know. She's the new one. She's the one who doesn't
Okay.
quite understand yet. But this educator was telling students, if you wear a mask, I'll give you candy. So it's
Yeah.
basically encouraging compliance and then also, yeah.
Yeah. So bribery is pretty common. It's a pretty simple technique, but I mean, I just want to kind of paint some perspective for people. I'm a father of a very young daughter. One of them is 3, another one is just a few months old, and to get a child to put a mask on, the type of things you must have to say to that kid to scare them. I mean, because they have to, it must be so irrationally ingrained inside of their heads just to be able to have that behavior be a normal thing, that it's crazy. And I've heard of kids getting bribed with pizza to get vaccinated. In one instance, I heard of a case in Los Angeles as well where that's happened. I mean, this is common. It's pretty gross, and the group punishments are pretty common as well. Just like the typical. I mean, we have clients who have truancy letters for sending their kids to school every single day. They put the kids outside instead of having them go to class, and then they get marked absent unexcused for the whole month of February. Now they have truancy letters, and they're proceeding. And this is in Orange County, so this is crazy.
So tell me about this cease and desist letter that I got a hold of from your Gavel project. What do parents do with this?
Yeah, so this is it's a letter that's basically generally available to the public. It's a letter that you as an individual can take, bring to your school. You can have your child print it out if you have a mask mandate or a vaccine mandate as well. This could be applicable as well. Have the student bring it to school and say, hey, look, this is where I stand. I'm not going to follow your rules. And this is basically a letter from me. It's a cease and desist letter from the student to the people to allow them to set up litigation. And basically it's the protest letter. You're saying, I am not going to be compliant with whatever policy you're putting in place. And by refusing to comply, if you discipline me, I have the right to sue you now. And this is a way for the students to provide context for that litigation. Basically, it's explaining what the law is, what the law says, and what the consequences are going to be for failing to follow what the law says, which is mark the student as having, protested in some degree, which is what the California Department of Public Health requires. Document it, and then send the student back to class. We actually did that up in Natomas. I went up there a couple of weeks ago in the Sacramento area, and I helped some students who wanted to learn to civilly disobey their school masking mandates. And we had these kids hand in these letters, and then within an hour, we had been told to take the student home, but we got a call back from the actual elementary school where this kid had handed in one of these letters. It's the ultimatum. It's on my website, thegavelproject.com. You can find it on one of the tabs there if you do some exploring. I don't recall exactly which one right now off the top of my head, but that student handed the letter in. An hour later, he was back on campus without a mask in his classroom, because basically the letter explains that if you don't follow this policy, if you don't do the right thing here and send your student back, you're going to get sued personally, teacher, not just the school district, but you. And we're coming after you for everything that you have, including your pension fund, because you don't get to discriminate against students for engaging in free speech under the Civil Rights Act without having some sort of consequence. And when you explain the law clearly, and you actually notify the police ahead of time, which is what we do as well. I called the Sacramento Police Department. Shout out to those guys, by the way, for actually being able to understand on the fly that morning what we were doing and being willing to accept the fact that the law is real and there are consequences to violating the law. And for standing up for the rights of the citizens who were engaged in their exercise of free speech, which are the students here, and they stayed out of it. They basically said, all right, we're gonna let the kids do their thing. We're not gonna butt in, we're not gonna harass the students on behalf of the school. And once that happened, the school basically just sent the kids back to class. They realized they didn't have any power. We actually had a separate student, after the first elementary school student was sent back to class in Natomas, we had a high school student in the same district do the same exact thing at her high school. This is a freshman girl. And she actually, on the fly, got the school to drop their policy as well. So that was 2 schools in Natomas, California that no longer require masking mandates for their kids. And if you have kids up in that district, send them in without masks. I mean, we're past that point now, but you can do the same thing for the vaccine right. Mandates as well. If you're in San Diego, one of the things I want to do is get down there to help those kids out because they have the mandates now. Same with LA. We need to
I saw that. Action. I saw that it was included the vaccine. You know, you're not allowed to vaccinate my student without my permission.
Yeah, because the act of refusing to comply with this ceremony, which is what the vaccine is, basically you're engaged in a ceremonial process without any scientific basis behind it, especially for kids. It's actually antithetical to what we should be doing for the health and safety of children. And so when we're talking about these types of issues, when you refuse to comply with a silly ceremony that you're being required to go through, that is expressive conduct. It's free speech. It's the same message being sent. When you don't comply as a business as well, if you refuse to basically enforce these types of policies against your employees and they come after you as a business, you can actually sue in defense. You can say, I was using my First Amendment rights as a citizen, as an entity under Citizens United. You actually have free speech rights as an entity for businesses. And you could make the same argument saying that we're not following this policy because by doing so, we're engaged in free speech. And if you discriminate against us, we can actually sue you now for damages. We're going to flip the script on people. That's what I like to do. I like to take the logical extremes and basically take the offensive as opposed to the defensive in all of these situations.
Cool. So for those of you guys just tuning in, we're talking to Ryan at the Gavel Project. He was telling us about this cease and desist letter that is available on your website. You said, correct?
Yep. It is available there.
It's available on the website, and there's also a step-by-step instruction on why we're doing this, how we're doing this, because we need to defeat these mandates. We need to take back our rights as parents. I'm not a parent, but you are, and it's going to take all of us. It's going to take people like me who are engaged to wake other people up, like you and the other sleeping thousands out there who feel like they're alone. So that's why we're out here today. So tell us some about another. I've heard about you originally through the Keppel School District. What did you do at that district? That kind of.
So Capistrano is an interesting place. They're the Capistrano Unified School District down in South Orange County, and we have some students down there that decided to engage in civil disobedience in early February. And one student in particular, his name is Troy. He's one of our clients. He's got perhaps the biggest male parts in the world, because the 16-year-old kid, starting on February 14th, went to school and basically said, I'm not going to follow your rules. I'm going to sit here in class. I'm going to get my education as I'm entitled to. And if you can go ahead and call the police, please do. Go ahead. And they did. And the sheriff showed up and he said, all right, if I'm suspended, as they say, because they purportedly suspended me now, and I'm still here on campus, then you can arrest me. I will peacefully submit to an arrest. Go ahead. And they didn't arrest him. They let him stay on campus all day. He actually was sneaking into his afternoon class and got into the building after being locked in a room by the principal and by the vice principal. He was actually falsely imprisoned by them. I was on the phone. I'm going to be a witness in that trial. It's going to be very interesting. And then physically assaulted as well by the principal in the hallway. He shoulder checked him in the hallway, walked through him instead of walking around him. It's a physical assault. I was not on the phone for that part, but Troy was there, and he's very capable of testifying to that fact. And I'm pretty sure those schools have cameras in them as well. We'll be requesting that footage as well. But this kid, the next day after being suspended, again, he stayed the whole day. The police left, goes back the next day, the 15th. He was suspended, and they had a desk waiting for him in the corner with plexiglass around it. So if he's suspended, why are they setting up the desk for him first?
Right, because they knew that they couldn't really technically do what they're doing.
Exactly. So we sent him back to school. It was about 10 o'clock. We actually had to file a police report earlier that day so we could actually get the assault and battery and all that false imprisonment fun stuff on the record for the Orange County Sheriff's, which was, we're still waiting to see what happens in that case, and are very excited to hopefully have some justice coming soon. But the kid kept going back to school. They called the sheriffs the next day on Tuesday, and he was there all day again, sneaking into class, being followed around, harassed all day. When he goes into the class, they move the class outside. They actually, that day in the afternoon, it was cold and rainy. I know because I was on the hill above the school taking phone calls from Troy, helping him, advise him through what to do throughout the day so he could legally, be in the right throughout the day and not break the law. So he basically was going through this process and playing cat and mouse, sneaking into rooms, having the class moved outside. Actually, that day was rainy and cold. They moved the whole class outside in the rain. These kids didn't have jackets on. I was referring to something earlier about how they're doing group punishment. This is one of the examples. These students are his high school classmates, and they're all being sent outside to sit in the rain and go through class in 45-degree weather.
Because of him.
Because of him. Because he took his mask off, they moved the whole class outside. And then when they moved the class back inside into the cafeteria, that was okay, even though he got into that room as well. It's like there's no logic or reason behind anything that's happening to these students. But anyway, he went back the next day on the 16th and did the same thing. Sheriffs came again, they left. That was 3 days in a row that this young man engaged in civil disobedience. And he finally got a ticket from the Orange County Sheriffs for trespassing on the third day after being there suspended for 3 days in a row. And I'm not sure exactly how that's going to play out. We're working on that right now, and I don't really have a whole lot to comment on, but that's one of the things that's favorable here is this argument, this First Amendment free speech argument is so strong that we're confident we're going to be able to move forward with this regardless and get justice for this young man. We're doing everything we can. We have students who have been suspended all across the state of California for engaging in protests. And we're actually engaged in due process hearings. We're requesting those right now for these students to go and get those stricken from the record because the suspensions actually have to be valid. So in California, the law says very clearly, the only way you can send a student off campus is for two reasons. One is parent consent. Usually it has to be expressly written. The other is what's called clear and present danger, meaning the student is engaged in some sort of action that makes him dangerous to others. That's drugs, guns, threats of violence, things like that. Without those two things, you can't send a student home. Well, they're trying to say that they're suspending these students now for what's called 48900K in the education code. It's called willful disobedience, all right? But willful disobedience, that code section is very clear. It says that in order to be hit for willful disobedience, there needs to be intent to disrupt the learning process. Without that, if you're simply engaged in a free speech action and there's no intention to disrupt the learning process of the people around you, then there's nothing they can do about it because you're not violating that provision of the California statute. They can't legally send you home. And so we're challenging all of those. And regardless of how it turns out within the due process hearing of the school districts, because you have to go through this funneling process to challenge it there, we'll be bringing these cases to court all over. And that's what my organization does, is we bring together these lawyers from across the state to help these kids out, and we fundraise to put together enough money to help these kids do it. And we're trying to do this on a national scale and to bring strategic litigation in these new ways. I don't know if you guys have picked up on it yet, but I have ADD. A lot of my students are that way as well. The ones that I work with, our clients. It's a gift and a curse. I lose my keys constantly, like all the time. But I think about things differently, and I come up with solutions to problems in ways that people don't think about. And so I'm very talented when it comes to complex problem solving, especially when it comes to the Constitution. I'm a constitutional attorney. I actually was taught by Justice Alito. He was my professor in law school. So
someone made a comment and they had a question that says, what are the identifiable damages we can show regarding the lawsuits?
Yeah, so if you have missed work, that's an argument we're going to be looking for. Parents specifically, if they've been, had kids quarantined over and over again, those types of damages are on the table. There are a lot of kids who we deal with personally that I mentioned disabilities who have actually fallen behind in their education, have to now go and get extra help outside of the classroom, and the parents are paying for that. We're help, that's damages as well. That's monetary damages. Psychological harm as well. A lot of these kids have gone through the ringer when it comes through being isolated, being, told that they're killing people by existing, those types of issues. If you need to go seek medical help, you should get your kid healthy. And those are the types of damages that we will try to recover as well for those individuals. But there are all sorts of other damages as well, pain and suffering, that we're going to be looking into. A lot of the lawsuits are going to be involving tort claims such as intentional infliction of emotional distress, negligent infliction of emotional distress, all sorts of things that you heard about in law school and never thought you'd actually be involved in litigation. But here in California for the next couple of years, this is the Wild West. So,
yeah. So do you have any plans on maybe moving beyond schools, or right now your focus is really just going to be schools?
I have plans to do everything. Basically, my organization is a fight the bad guys organization, as I tell my daughters. We have a case selection committee, 7 individuals, including Dr. Peter McCullough, Dr. Colleen Huber, and a few others, less prominent individuals, but really awesome. Basically, we look for a representation of the citizenry of 7 people that can basically hear applications as they come in through our website. They consider these applications for representation. It's not limited to kids in mass. It's limited to who are the bad guys. Like if it's a corporation that's poisoning drinking water somewhere and you don't like it as part of your community, apply for representation and we'll go sue those people. That's what we do. If it's a government, if it's a state government that's being a tyrant or, taking away your rights, we'll go help those people as well. If it's a foreign government, we'll basically, if you've got someone harming you out there, whether it be an entity or a person, and there's a societal issue, it's not just you and the person, but it's like change that we can make as a society. Those types of cases are what we do. We're looking to fight
Okay.
the vaccine manufacturers. I actually have an argument that I'm working on right now to take on the PrEP Act, which is granting them protection from civil suits. And if we can take that down, then we can help the vaccine injured. There are all sorts of things that I want to do. I want to fight bankers, big pharma, all the bad guys really in society. I want to go after.
So what communities do you see are going to be I guess you could say, the easiest communities to achieve a victory? Have you
So
identified that? Have you done a demographic look?
we look for, as far as the First Amendment claim goes, because we're going to be doing jury trials on these issues, we look for areas where we can set precedent to make sure this never happens again, which is the primary thing that we're doing, make sure kids are never put in masks again across the country, and no one else has to do that again. We're looking for conservative leaning areas or 50-50 split sort of conservative Democrat areas, right? Where we can have jury trials on that issue in particular. That's where we're starting our focus. And that's why I really honed in on the Orange County area when I started my litigation, because you have a very strong opportunity, especially in South Orange County, where where the Capistrano Unified School District is, where these jury trials are going to be epic. And even in your area, I know you mentioned Palmdale, like we could do that as well. And that's the idea, is to find places where we can have, set precedent so that we can start bringing these suits all over the state and all over the country as well. There are kids that could bring this suit in Chicago. There are kids that could bring this suit in New York. It really resource limited. So the sky's the limit for us. The
That
foundation's been
sounds
laid.
really amazing, Ryan. So tell everybody where they can find all of your information, because I'm super excited to be working with you. I'm
Thank
super
you.
excited to continue the victories that we've had in our community and all those communities that you've touched. So tell everybody about your website again. Tell them
Yeah.
about
Thank
where they
you.
can
So you
find it.
can follow me. You can find my handle here. I'm at Ryan_L_Heath, or at the Gavel Project is better. You can go to thegavelproject.com though. That's where you can find most of the information on us. And if you want to read, if you're a reader and you're interested in sort of new ideas, I'm a writer. I have a Substack. It's thegavelproject.substack.com. You can check out my work there as well. But thank you, Mario. I'm actually excited to come up and see you at some point in the next few weeks and get plugged into your community, because every kid up there deserves help, just like the kids in the south part of the state. So
You got it. And then real quick before we go, look, sounds like someone has a real quick question. Is there any way you could help us maybe implement this ordinance that we passed? And I know we talked offline about it. Um, well, how?
this is the one that you were talking about earlier. Okay.
Yes.
So I have to be very careful when it comes to policies. So I run a
Yes.
501c3, and that means
Got it.
that I can't be political outside. Like, I can't push for things, but I can
Right.
attack anything. So if there's anything you need
Okay.
to fight for, that's really where I come in. I'm so glad that y'all are taking action and being engaged in your community and passing these types of ordinances and doing the right thing as civil servants to your fellow human beings around you, which is really what you're doing. You're building up, you're protecting kids, you're protecting people. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
But I can't say anything as far as
No,
that
that's
ordinance
fine. That's a
goes.
good answer. So, well, thank you very much, Ryan. I appreciate your time. I hope you have a wonderful evening with you and your babies and your wife.
Thank
And
you.
I definitely look forward to working together and maybe having you speak to the school committee up here,
I
the
love
group
that.
at large, speak to the school district and let them know, hey, we're coming for you guys. These things that you do in the darkness and that the way you've been hurting our kids, we're not going to stand for it.
That's right. Thank you so much, Mario. I appreciate it, and I look forward to meeting you in person
So
soon. Thanks for having me.
thank you so much, Ryan. Talk to you
All
later.
right. Sounds great. Take
Bye.
care. Bye.